Good evening, Azeroth, and welcome to episode 127 of the World of Goldcraft. As usual, I'm your host, the Lazy Goldmaker of thelazygoldmaker.com, and, welcome back to the show. Welcome back to everyone who's following live or watching this or listening to this after the fact. So, I'm recording this the day after the TBC Classic Beta came out. So what do you think I'm going to talk about today? Well, obviously we're going to talk about TBC Classic. And my original experience with TBC, my plans, my thoughts, the whole shebang. But before that, a quick shout out to my patrons that make this podcast available. So if you're interested in supporting the show, then head on over to patreon.com/thelazygoldmaker. So, we usually talk about for a very short while about what's going on with the game. But yeah, retail-wise, there's nothing to talk about relative to the big news, which is obviously the fact that TBC Classic Beta is out. The first people got access yesterday. I haven't even checked if I have access. I think I have opted in, which sort of tells you a little bit about how excited I am. I generally don't like playing betas for MMO type games, because that's just going to ruin the experience when you actually get into it. You're going to use up the content and the freshness. So even if I get access, I won't be playing much. I had Shadowlands beta. I did a small amount of profession testing. And that was it. And I'm not planning to do any large-scale beta testing or playing in the TBC Classic beta. In fact, that's a side note, not related to gold making at all. It's very interesting to see how many people, how many Shadowlands retail players or content creators who just played the beta too much and actually just got sick of the game before it was even out. Like a lot of people hated Torghast because they played it so much during the beta. Of course, the live version is different, but that's another story. But I'm not planning to pay the beta much. But we're obviously going to talk about TBC Classic. As some of you will already know, I've personally played WoW since actual vanilla. I think I started the game somewhere around the Blackwing Lair patch. I was not from the beginning of the game. I cleared Molten Core back in the day. I killed the farthest I got as far as raiding goes was we killed Prophet Scaram in AQ40, and I was in the raid. I was in a guild, but I was not a raider. I managed to get into an AQ40 run where we killed Scaram. We might have killed the bug trio as well. Who knows? After that, during TBC, I was at boarding school. I was at the boarding school after high school, and that left me with pretty much no time to play the game. So I didn't play the game. I played it a little bit during holidays when I was home. So I leveled the Draenei Paladin from 1 to 70 eventually. I did Karazhan, and that's about it for what I did during TBC. I did a few heroics as well. I think I healed some heroics, which went terribly, and yeah, that's it. Like, I didn't actually play or truly experience TBC. But even still, I'm not actually that hyped for TBC. I was actually way more hyped for Classic, even though I objectively had played more of Classic in terms of rating and what's available of the content. Because I really wanted to see the original Cthulhu fight and play that. That was like the biggest thing I wanted to do in Classic was to kill Cthulhu. And we did, and I mean, compared to modern rating, it's all a letdown anyway. So I'm not that hyped for TBC, because while I enjoyed Classic, as many of you know, I played almost exclusively Classic for a year. The main reason I stayed with Classic is, in hindsight, the social aspect of my guild. Because the stagnant gameplay from playing on one patch the entire cycle, in terms of like gameplay balance, is just very boring to me personally. I get bored with the same class, and when it's the same meta the entire life cycle of the game, then you're never incentivized to reroll or try something else, because you'll just be less optimal. Like, I was a rogue, I had good daggers. There's really no reason for me to try anything else. I was the second or third best DPS spec in the game after Warriors in Classic. So I expect the experience will be similar in TBC, with people min-maxing the shit out of it. So I mean, people are already doing that. That's what they're spending their beta testing time doing. They're sharing Discord messages about how you can min-max your professions for not for profit. They don't care about that. They care about raid performance and stuff like that. They're already like hyper min-maxing it, and the beta has been out for 1 day, and people are like trying to their hardest to just min-max it to the core. And it's like, I just personally, I don't think I'll ever understand the logic of doing that in the WoW Classic strain of games, because ultimately, like, Classic raids were easy. If you even without min-maxing, it was easy as hell. Like, of course, most guilds probably had some wipes and knacks, but it wasn't even proper progress rating. The hardest thing to fight was really just the time commitment and the raid size commitment. Now, TBC does have, as far as I know, slightly more challenging bosses. But I mean, the hardest boss in all of TBC and one of the hardest bosses in WoW history is Muru from the Sunwell Plateau. And the only reason Muru was hard was because of a really tight DPS check. It's literally just a boss with ads. Just kill the ads fast enough and you can kill it. If you can't kill the ads fast enough, you wipe. And it was really hard to get a comp that could kill the ads fast enough. Well, that's slightly interesting. It's a little bit... I'm someone who enjoys min-maxing DPS. This is all going to be known from now. People already know what is likely to be the optimal kill composition for Muru. And they'll be planning for that from the get-go. And I expect with the average game knowledge, I expect people to just blow actual TBC DPS numbers out of the water. But we'll see how much they change. But ultimately, this is all just why I'm not that interested in Classic TBC as a raiding game, because I am someone who really enjoys raiding, and I'm raiding in retail currently, as many of you know. So yeah. Now, the other side of the coin, gold making. When I played TBC, that was when I learned my first gold making method. I actually learned it from a real life friend that we were playing with. And he taught me, he was at the time making thousands of gold, literally just shuffling Mage Weave cloth into Vision Dust and Nether Essences with the White Bandit Mask recipe. And he taught me, just buy Mage Weave cloth on this recipe and craft it and disenchant and sell the materials. And there are some reasons why this is so good, because this is generally, or at least it was at the time of TBC, this was a real bottleneck for leveling enchanting the Vision Dust and the Nether Essences. And in TBC, enchanters get ring enchants and no one else gets ring enchants. And that's one of the better, as far as I know, one of the better PvE professions. It's one of the better boosts you can get from having a profession. So what does that mean? It means that tons of people will be leveling enchanting. So many people will level enchanting. So materials to level enchanting, well, they're going to be in demand. They were back then. They will be again. It's not certain that the Vision Dust shuffle is going to be the most profitable one, but it's the first one I learned, so I'll always have like a soft spot for TBC for that reason, from a gold making perspective. Now, I don't think there's any doubt that TBC Classic will do well. I think we'll see tons of players come back into the game. Tons of Classic players who might have gone inactive over the last couple of months coming back, or the last year even, because there are many people who came back for Classic who really had TBC as their favorite expansion and were looking like just waiting for TBC Classic and just playing the second best thing while they were waiting. Obviously, I'm sure many retail players will also try it out, and I do expect TBC to just do really well. And I mean, the hype is already real. Just look at where we are right now in the WoW section of Twitch. It's literally just brimming with people running around in Hellfire Peninsula. That's it. That's what they're all doing. So that's what I expect to see. Now, obviously, TBC will bring a ton of changes to the Classic meta. Warriors, the be all end all, the best class in all of Classic, bar none. I don't think there's any class that has ever been as overpowered as warriors are in Classic compared to the rest. It's the only real tank for raiding. It's by far the best DPS for raiding in all aspects. Best single target, best AoE cleave. Or maybe large scale AoE mages are better, but like best cleave damage for sure. Just stupid. But yeah, they're not the top dogs in TBC. Far from it. I think you'll bring 1 or 2 or 3 warriors in a raid group depending on how good they are as tanks, but that's it. 1 DPS max, I think, 1 arms warrior for some kind of buff, and that's it. New classes are going to be the top dogs for raid DPS. Hybrids can suddenly do more than just heal, like Protection Paladin is a legit spec. Arena gives PvPers something to do and also gives some classes a much stronger niche than what they had in Classic. And of course, flying is one of the biggest changes to the game ever that Blizzard is actually still struggling with, which is why they take it away at the beginning of every expansion, because flying just kills all the world content. Like many of the things that are truly unique to Classic will die with Classic WoW. Fighting for world bosses, the Phase 2 PvP meta, world buff purging and wars like that. Once you have flying, a lot of that stuff, even if it was still relevant, just isn't going to work the same way. Because if you can mount up, then you're away, then you're home free. Now, what was I going to say? Now, let's take when it comes to gold making in TBC. There's one thing that I am genuinely super excited for, and it's almost a reason to play TBC just for this one thing. Jewel crafting in its original form, in its glorious form. TBC was the expansion where they added jewel crafting. I had to have jewel crafting on my paladin. I wanted the Draenei paladin because it was a new race, and I had to have the new profession on it, jewel crafting. And I've been loving it ever since, all the way until I think Warlords of Draenor was the first time I felt they really gutted JC or jewel crafting, and then of course in Shadowlands it's so dull. But that's beside the point. In TBC though, there are so many sockets. Their items can have 3 sockets. That's just a huge amount. So, and generally speaking, picking your own stats is always going to be incredibly powerful, as long as you can get good stats from gems. So yeah, jewel crafting is going to be a ton of fun. It used to, as I said, it used to be my favorite gold making profession by a huge margin. Doing the jewel crafting shuffle or combining it with enchanting for like a full scale shuffle like you did in Wrath, that was so fun. That was so fun. So with jewel crafting filling a powerful niche, you have the meta gems that are super powerful. You have all of the gems that people will want, and there will be a lot more demand. And with no mass prospecting, there will be a lot less competition because prospecting is going to be annoying. And that's really good for gold makers. The more annoying it is to craft an item, the more profit you can make with it, because other people aren't going to bother. So I will have to play TBC to at least some extent, because I have to get into jewel crafting again in its proper shape. Now, luckily, I have a level 60 Warlock in Classic, which is one of the go-to meta PvE classes, and a strong PvP class as well. So I might, if I play TBC, I will 100% be playing my Warlock and having some fun with that. I will probably be making some gold making content and make some gold in TBC. But how much? It's not going to be on the scale of Classic, that's for sure. My focus will my main focus will likely remain on retail. But we'll see what we can find. I think TBC Classic gold making will be fairly easy to figure out, just like it was in Classic. We'll see if it retains some of the Classic characteristics, where people prefer to use trade chat, particularly for crafting items. I expect consumables, like we have the old auction house, which is just so much fun because you can use pretty stacking. When you're selling anything that stacks, just sell it in the perfect stack size for your buyers, and you can post your item for 20% more and still get the sale. I miss that a lot in retail as well. But yeah. Now, what can we expect from now until launch? Well, I think many people have already started preparing for TBC. More people will start now. They'll be preparing their new mains. They'll be like filling up their quest logs with completed quests ready to turn in to really just speed level up to level 70. Of course, many players will reroll and want to get a new class or character to level 60. So if you're like someone who does classic boosting, I think you'll be making a lot of business for the foreseeable future. Almost everyone will be re-rolling their professions to min-max for stat bonuses, I think. So materials for leveling professions, they'll probably have already reacted quite heavily to the beta news. But they'll remain high so you can farm them. There will be flipping opportunities for sure. But it's going to be risky. But that's definitely something to look into right now. And particularly for jewel crafting, where right now there's just speculative and just hardcore player demand. And once the expansion is out and people actually need to get the materials to start leveling, I think many auction houses will run dry of jewel crafting leveling materials for sure. Of course, when the pre-patch rolls around, we'll see people rolling their Draenei's, their Blood Elves, their Shamans or Paladins on the opposite faction from where you can currently get them. So that should also be a time to really crank it with boosting if you can. As I'm sure many players are just bored with the leveling experience in Classic after having spent a lot of time doing that if you have more than one level 60. Gold making wise, as I said, I expect TBC to mirror Classic in many ways, particularly due to the old auction house. So alchemy will be really strong still. There's still a lot of stuff we do not know. Of course, we don't know how powerful drums are going to be. The latest news I saw from beta was that the old drums were nerfed and they added another more expensive in terms of materials craft drum type, which is the same as the old one. Which is an interesting fix, because if that still works as it did, then everyone will still have to be leatherworkers. They'll just be needing even more leather than they did originally. So if they go for that, then I'll be laughing my ass off. That would be hilarious. That would be the most stupid way to solve that problem ever. Because it wouldn't solve it. It wouldn't solve it. It would just force raiders to farm even more leather. or more gold. Obviously, as far as I know, enchants will not be able to be traded on the auction house. The enchanting vellums were just added in Wrath of the Lich King. So what that means, when you add in the fact that many people will want the ring enchants, well, you'll have a ton of enchanters to compete with. An absolute ton of them. So I expect enchanting to do, honestly, really badly outside of shuffling for gold making. It was already super competitive. Like, people were paying 4k, 5k for the plus 4 stats recipe in Classic. And people were just tipping like 50 gold. You had to sell so many enchants for that to be worth it. Like, it was terrible for gold making in Classic, and it's going to be even worse in TBC. Raw gold wise, I do expect we'll see continued inflation, because WoW is inflationary by design. It's going to be interesting to see how AoE farming works in TBC, because a large amount of the inflation in Classic is obviously caused by the huge amount of mages doing very efficient AoE farms that generate just a ton of raw gold value. So if we see people finding AoE farming methods that work well in TBC, then I expect the raw gold generation will just be cranked up to 11. Of course, you have stuff like doing quests for gold. A lot of people are like, yeah, we're going to grind dungeons to 670 and then do quests for gold. And I'll never understand how people think that the quests for gold is like the big way to make money. This goes to show how different people are. It's like, just use professions, man. It's going to be way more efficient in like 99% of cases. being the one to generate the raw gold yourself is generally almost never the most profitable thing to do. It was in Classic for a time because there wasn't enough raw gold in circulation yet. But outside of that, I don't think it's going to be the case. And of course, we're going to see people trading retail gold for Classic gold, just like they did in Classic and retail. There's a huge market for that. If you're unaware of that, this might be a secret to you, but there are trading discords for selling rare items, for selling really anything in WoW, including trading gold between retail and Classic. So people are buying tokens and trading their gold to a Classic realm, and essentially buying gold on Classic realms completely legally, as far as I know. So that's going to continue. People will have epic flying ASAP. It's not going to be hard to generate resources for anyone that cares about the game. Of course, if you're there are always going to be people who can't figure it out. Always. That's the case in Shadowlands. That's the case in Classic. That's going to be the case in TBC. But we're still going to see way more people have epic flying than we did originally. Way more people play meta classes. Way more people min-max their professions. It's still going to be fun. Particularly for those who enjoy it. Arena is going to be interesting. I think that's going to be fun for a while, and then I think it's going to suck personally because they're never going to rebalance classes. It's going to be on one balance patch. That's what they've said, at least. Imagine an entire expansion of just one PvP meta. I'm not particularly interested in that, unless the Shadow SL Warlock actually turns out to be as insane as some people say they are. But we'll see. So that's some of my thoughts. That's already a pretty long episode for me. We're not going to do any... haven't gotten any questions from chat, and I don't really have any prepared either. So that's going to be it. If you have any... what are you looking forward to in TBC? Are you going to play it? Are you not? Why not? Just let me know. Leave a comment below. It really helps me out, and we can get some discussion going. As I said, I don't expect to play it not much, but predicting the future is really hard, so obviously we'll have to see. Either way, thanks for sticking with me for the show. If you enjoyed this, then leave a like. It really helps us with the algorithm, and subscribe to the YouTube channel, or just subscribe to the RSS feed for the podcast if you prefer to just listen. And with that, I wish you all a very profitable week. Goodbye, guys.